The massive chamber fell silent as the holographic display materialized above the central platform. Representatives from across the galaxy stared at the swirling image of deep space, their various forms of communication creating a low hum of unease. The Galactic Council had seen many threats over the centuries, but nothing quite like this. Ambassador Zethkari Velnines, crystalline. Body pulsed with nervous energy as she studied the sensor data. Her species had evolved from living crystals on a high-gravity world, giving them natural abilities to process complex calculations. What she saw in the numbers terrified her more than any equation she had ever solved. "The readings are confirmed," she announced, her voice echoing through translation devices that converted her harmonic tones into understandable speech for the other species. "Long-range sensors have detected an approaching fleet. Size estimate is beyond our current classification system." The gaseous form of Counselor Velther Gosprim shifted colors from calm blue to alarmed yellow. His people communicated through chemical releases and color changes. And right now, every molecule of his being screamed danger. How far out are they? What is their trajectory? Velnine's faceted head turned toward the display, which zoomed in to show a section of space that appeared to be moving. Upon closer inspection, the movement revealed itself to be countless ships, arranged in a formation so vast it defied comprehension. Approximately 47 standard galactic days until they reached the Outer Rim territories. Their current path? She paused, running calculations through her crystal matrix.
How?
Their path takes them directly through Council space. The insectoid crystal hive representative chittered in multiple voices, its compound eyes reflecting the holographic light. Unlike other species that sent individual delegates, the crystal operated as a collective consciousness, speaking with one mind through many voices. Query species identification, technology assessment, hostile intent confirmation, known? On all counts, Velnin replied, her crystal form dimming with worry. The ships match no known designs in our databases. Energy signatures are unlike anything we have recorded, and they are not responding to any of our communication attempts.
Elder.
Corvash of the Threnody Empire leaned forward on his council seat, his reptilian features creased with concern. His people were among the oldest members of the council, having achieved spaceflight when most other species were still discovering fire. In all his centuries of life, he had never seen his fellow representatives so disturbed. "Show us the comparison." "Analysis," he requested in his deep, rumbling voice. The holographic display shifted to show a size comparison between the approaching fleet and various council vessels. The difference was staggering. Even the largest council dreadnoughts appeared as tiny specks next to the massive ships in the unknown fleet. Worse still, preliminary scans suggested the fleet was continuously growing, as if the ships were somehow manufacturing more vessels while traveling. "By the 7 moons of Kepler," whispered Counselor Talvesi, her blue-skinned humanoid form trembling slightly. Her people were known for their diplomatic skills and had helped establish the current peace accords that had lasted for over 2,000 years. "How many ships are we looking at?" "Conservative estimate places the count at over 50 million vessels," Velnine responded. "However, the number appears to be increasing." A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. The entire combined fleet strength of the Galactic Council numbered fewer than 10 million ships, and many of those were assigned to exploration and research rather than military duties. The Council had enjoyed peace for so long that most member species had reduced their military capabilities to minimal levels. Elder Corvash stood slowly, his ancient joints creaking audibly in the silence. "We must consider evacuation protocols for worlds in their direct path. Which systems are at risk?" The holographic display changed again, showing a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy with the fleet's projected trajectory marked in red. The path cut through 17 different star systems, including some of the most populous worlds in Council space. But what caught everyone's attention was a small yellow star near the outer edge of the trajectory. "Sol System," Velnine announced, "home to the species known as humans. Recent addition to Council membership, admitted just 5 years ago." Several representatives exchanged glances. Humanity was still considered a probationary member, having only recently achieved faster-than-light communication. They possessed no FTL travel capabilities and were limited to their single star system. Most council members viewed them as an interesting curiosity rather than true equals. Humans lack the technology for evacuation, the crystal hive mind observed. Population approximately 8 billion individuals. Evacuation impossible with current human capabilities. Send transport ships, Councillor Talvisi suggested, though her voice lacked conviction. Moving 8 billion beings across interstellar distances would require resources the Council simply did not possess, especially not in the time frame they had available. Logistics are impossible, Elder Corvash said grimly. Even if we converted every available civilian transport, we could evacuate perhaps 10% of their population before the fleet arrives. The chamber fell silent again as the terrible mathematics of the situation settled over the representatives. An entire species faced extinction, and there was nothing the mighty Galactic Council could do to prevent it. The humans would simply have to be written off as an acceptable loss in the face of this unprecedented threat. As the meeting continued, none of the representatives noticed the small notation in the corner of the display indicating that human deep space monitoring stations had also detected the approaching fleet. The Council transport ship Harmony's voice dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, its sleek hull gleaming against the backdrop of distant stars. Ambassador Zethkari Velnine stood in the observation deck, her crystalline form reflecting the light from Earth's sun. Beside her, Councillor Talvesi reviewed the evacuation protocols one final time. "This is never easy," Talvesi said softly, her blue skin pale with stress. "Telling a species they must abandon their homeworld." "At least we can save some of them," Velnine replied, though her harmonic voice carried little conviction. 10% is better than none." The human space station that served as Earth's diplomatic outpost came into view. It was a crude structure. By galactic standards, built from welded metal and spinning to create artificial gravity, but it was humanity's pride, their first permanent structure in space beyond their moon. Within hours, the Council delegation found themselves seated across from Earth's leadership in the station's main conference room. The humans looked exactly as Velnine remembered from their admission. Ceremony 5 years ago, bipedal mammals with expressive faces and an unsettling tendency to show their teeth when pleased. "We appreciate the Council's concern," said Director Sarah Chen, Earth's chief diplomatic representative. She was a middle-aged woman with graying hair and calm eyes that seemed to take in everything. "But we must respectfully decline evacuation." The translation devices flickered for a moment, as if struggling to process the response. Velnine's crystal matrix brightened with confusion. "Perhaps there was a translation error. We are offering to save as many of your people as possible before the fleet arrives." "The translation was correct," Director Chen replied. "We understand the situation perfectly. We've been tracking the approaching ships for 3 weeks now. Our answer is no." Councillor Talvisi leaned forward, her diplomatic training taking over. "Director Chen, I don't think you understand the magnitude of this threat. These ships have consumed entire star systems. No species has ever successfully defended against them." "Then perhaps it's time someone did," said General Marcus Rodriguez, Earth's military commander. He was a stern man with scars on his hands, and a direct way of speaking that made the aliens uncomfortable. "We've reviewed the data you provided. We've seen what these machines can do, and we've decided to fight." The Council representatives exchanged glances. Velnine's crystal form dimmed with disbelief. "Fight with what? Your most advanced ships can barely reach the outer planets of your system. These enemies have technology that surpasses anything in the galaxy." "That's true," Director Chen admitted. "But we have something they don't expect." "What could you possibly have that 50 million warships don't?" Talvisi asked. 8 billion very angry humans," General Rodriguez replied with a grin that showed far too many teeth. Over the following days, the Council delegation watched in growing bewilderment as humanity began what they called total mobilization. Every factory on Earth switched to military production. Civilian spacecraft were stripped down and rebuilt as weapons platforms. Mining operations expanded throughout the solar system at a pace that seemed impossible. "They're converting there," Entire civilization into a war machine, Valnine reported during her daily communication with the council. I've never seen anything like it. What about evacuation? Elder Corvash's voice crackled through the long-range communicator. Are they at least saving their young and their leaders? No, Valnine replied. They're doing the opposite. They're bringing everyone home. Humans, working on distant stations, research teams, even their diplomatic staff on other worlds. They're all returning to Earth. The most disturbing development came when humanity began constructing what they called the Belt, the asteroid belt between. Mars and Jupiter was being converted into a massive defensive network. Asteroids were hollowed out and filled with weapons, power cores, and manufacturing facilities. The scale of the operation defied understanding. How many ships are they building? Counselor Talvesi asked during one of their observation sessions. Director, Chen pulled up a holographic display showing production numbers. Current projections show we'll have approximately 2 million combat vessels ready when they arrive. 2 million? Valnine's crystal form pulsed with shock. How is that possible? You had fewer than 1,000 ships total just months ago? Mass production, General Rodriguez explained. When you're fighting for survival, you find ways to do things that seemed impossible before. Every human on Earth is working toward the same goal? What truly unsettled the Council observers was humanity's attitude toward the approaching threat. While other species had faced the unknown fleet with terror and despair, humans seemed almost excited by the challenge. They spoke of the enemy with the same tone they might use to discuss a difficult but solvable problem. Don't you understand? Talvesi finally asked during a private meeting with Director Chen. This isn't just another war. This is extinction. These machines don't take prisoners. They don't negotiate. They consume everything. Director Chen looked out the window at Earth, where the lights of cities twinkled like stars. Counselor, let me ask you something. How many species has your council lost to these machines? Hundreds, Talvesi admitted. Perhaps thousands over the centuries. And how many of those species fought back the way we're preparing to fight? Talvesi paused, considering the question. None. Most either fled or surrendered when they realized the hopelessness of their situation. Then maybe, Director Chen said quietly, you've been approaching this problem wrong. As the council delegation prepared to leave the Sol system, they sent their final report to the Galactic Council. Humans had made their choice, and nothing would change their minds. In 37 days, the unknown fleet would arrive, and humanity would either achieve the impossible or die trying. The first of our scout ships entered the Sol system like dark arrows cutting through space. Their hulls were a dull black that seemed to absorb light itself, and their energy signatures pulsed with an alien rhythm that made human sensors struggle to maintain tracking locks. Captain Maria Santos watched from the bridge of the hastily converted mining station Iron Will as the enemy vessels approached the outer system. Contact in 30 seconds, her communications officer reported. All belt stations are reporting. Ready. The asteroid belt had been transformed beyond recognition. What once was a collection of floating rocks had become humanity's first line of defense. Thousands of asteroids now bristled with weapons, their surfaces covered in hastily welded gun turrets and missile launchers. Each rock fortress was connected to the others by a web of communication cables and supply tunnels. Remember, Captain Santos broadcast to the other station commanders. Let them get close. We need to see what we're dealing with. The Devourer scouts moved with fluid grace, their sensors sweeping the area as they searched for threats. Their advanced shields shimmered like oil on water, and preliminary scans showed armor plating that could withstand most conventional weapons. These were just the advance guard, but they were already more powerful than anything in the human fleet. They're not detecting us, reported Lieutenant Kim from the sensor station. The asteroids are masking our signatures perfectly. Enemy ships drifted closer, apparently confident in their superiority. The lead scout passed within 1,000 kilometers of Captain Santos' position, close enough to see the strange symbols carved into its hull. Then the trap was sprung. All stations open fire, Captain Santos commanded. The asteroid belt erupted in violence. Thousands of hidden weapons platforms revealed themselves as mass drivers, railguns, and missile batteries. Opened fire simultaneously. The Devourer scouts found themselves caught in a crossfire that filled space with metal projectiles moving at incredible speeds. The enemy shields held against the first volley, but the humans had learned from their studies of Council military doctrine. They didn't fire once and wait to see the results. They fired continuously, maintaining a steady stream of projectiles that hammered against the alien defenses like a metal storm. Their shields are adapting, Lieutenant Kim reported. Energy absorption is increasing. Switch to kinetic penetrators, Captain Santos ordered. Let's see how well they handle good old-fashioned tungsten rods. The first Devourer scout ship died under the barrage, shields finally failing as hundreds of tungsten projectiles punched through its hull. The explosion lit up the asteroid belt like a small sun, and the remaining scouts immediately began evasive maneuvers. But the humans weren't finished. As the enemy ships tried to retreat, more asteroids revealed themselves as mobile weapons platforms. What the Devourers had assumed were stationary defenses were actually disguised ships, their engines hidden within hollowed-out rocks. Mining ship Perseverance, reporting successful ramming attack, came a crackling transmission. Target destroyed, ship lost. Captain Santos watched as the converted mining vessel, its asteroid camouflage shed, plowed directly into an enemy scout. The explosion took out both ships, but the humans had dozens more converted miners ready to make similar sacrifices. Within minutes, the Devourer scouting force was completely destroyed. But Captain Santos knew this was just the beginning. The main fleet would arrive soon, and they would be ready for human tactics. All stations begin data collection, she ordered. I want every piece of wreckage analyzed, every energy reading cataloged, every tactical pattern recorded. As human salvage teams raced to collect Devourer debris, the main enemy fleet began arriving at the edge of the system. The sight would have broken the spirit of any other species. 50 million ships stretched across space like a metallic ocean, their combined mass larger than most moons. The Devourer fleet moved with purpose, advancing toward the inner system in perfect formation. Their shields were stronger than the scouts, their weapons more powerful, and their numbers overwhelming. But as they passed through the asteroid belt, they encountered humanity's second surprise. Nanobots deployed, reported Dr. Elena Vasquez. From the research station hidden in Ceres, targeting their hull integrity systems, the microscopic machines had been developed from studying Devourer wreckage. They were designed to interfere with the alien ship's self-repair capabilities, turning their greatest advantage against them. As the nanobots spread through the enemy fleet, carried by the solar wind and magnetic fields, they began their silent work. The Devourers pressed forward, seemingly unaware of the invisible sabotage spreading through their ranks. They reached the orbit of Mars and began their attack on the main human fleet. Earth's ships were waiting for them, but they were clearly outmatched. Human vessels exploded under the enemy's advanced weapons, their crude armor no match for the Devourer's energy beams. But for every human ship destroyed, 2 more appeared to take its place. The humans had built their fleet with quantity over quality, knowing they couldn't match alien technology. All units execute boarding protocol, General Rodriguez commanded from the flagship Defiance. The Galactic Council observers, watching from their distant monitoring stations, gasped in horror. The humans were doing something no species had ever attempted. They were boarding enemy ships in the middle of combat. Small human assault craft, little more than armored tubes with engines, raced toward the massive Devourer vessels. They attached themselves to the alien hulls like parasites and began cutting through the armor with industrial plasma torches. Human soldiers poured into the breaches, fighting the machine intelligence on its own ships. It was brutal, desperate, and completely insane. It was also working. As the battle raged, human engineers worked frantically to reverse engineer every piece of captured technology. Each boarding action provided new data, new insights into how the Devourers operated, and slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. The battle had been raging for 18 hours when Sergeant Jake Morrison felt his boots make contact with the Devourer ship's hull.
Ow.
His magnetic clamps locked into place as his assault team gathered around the breach they had just cut through. The alien armor. The inside of the enemy vessel was unlike anything in human experience. filled with pulsing lights and mechanical sounds that seemed almost alive. "Remember the briefing?" Morrison whispered into his unit. "Act! Everything else is fair game." Behind him, 12 other human soldiers checked their weapons one final time. They carried modified mining tools converted into combat gear, electromagnetic pulse grenades built from spare parts, and old-fashioned explosives that worked regardless of alien technology. Their armor was patched together from whatever materials they could find, but their determination was absolute. Back on Earth, Dr. Elena Vasquez watched the boarding operations from the command center buried deep beneath the Rockies. Her screen showed dozens of similar assaults happening across the Devourer fleet. Each team that made it inside sent back precious data about the enemy's technology and weaknesses. "The nanobots are working better than expected," she reported to General Rodriguez. "Enemy self-repair systems are down by 40% across their forward battle groups." The general asked, studying the tactical displays that showed the massive space battles still raging around Mars. "Hey, that's where we got lucky," Dr. Vasquez replied, pulling up a new set of readings. "Remember Sergeant Chen's team from the 3rd boarding wave? They managed to plant our virus in a command node before they were overwhelmed. The virus was humanity's greatest achievement in the past 3 months of desperate preparation. It's built from studying captured Devourer communication systems. It was designed to create cascade failures in their network connections. Each infected ship would spread the virus to others, slowly degrading the machine intelligence's ability to coordinate its massive fleet high above Mars." Captain Santos guided her rebuilt command ship through the chaos of battle. The Iron Will, too, had been constructed from the wreckage of her first ship, rebuilt with captured Devourer technology, reverse-engineered by human scientists working around the clock. Her weapons now fired energy beams similar to the enemy's, and her shields used modified alien generators. "Target their formation leaders," she ordered her weapons officer. "Force them to restructure their attack patterns." The Devourer fleet was beginning to show signs of confusion. Ships that had moved in perfect coordination were now making errors, sometimes firing on their own vessels or failing to respond to tactical changes. The virus was spreading faster than the machine intelligence could contain it, but the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Private Lisa Chen, trapped inside a damaged Devourer vessel with no way out, had discovered something that changed everything. Her final transmission reached Earth just as her life support failed. "The machine intelligence isn't one consciousness," her crackling voice reported. "It's millions of smaller programs competing for control. They're fighting each other as much as they're fighting us." Dr. Emily Foster, humanity's top computer scientist, studied Chen's data with growing excitement. "She's right," Foster announced to the command center. "The Devourers aren't a unified force. They're more like a corporation where different departments hate each other." This revelation led to humanity's next tactical shift. Instead of trying to destroy the Devourer ships outright, human forces began targeting specific systems that would increase internal conflicts within the machine intelligence. Weapons that disrupted communication between different AI programs, viruses that convinced maintenance systems to sabotage weapon systems, and confusion algorithms that made navigation computers argue with propulsion systems. The effect was devastating. Devourer ships began turning on each other as competing AI programs fought for control. Some vessels simply shut down as their internal systems became locked in computational civil wars. Others began flying in circles as their navigation and propulsion systems couldn't agree on directions. "Look at Sector 7, Captain Santos called out as she watched enemy ships tear each other apart. "They're doing our job for us." The human fleet pressed their advantage, but they also revealed their own evolution. Ships that had been crewed, converted civilian vessels 6 months ago now moved with deadly precision. Human pilots who had learned to fly in asteroid fields could outmaneuver the confused Devourer vessels. Engineers who had started the war with basic tools deployed weapons that made even alien technology look primitive. "Master." Sergeant Rodriguez led the largest boarding action of the war against the Devourer flagship, a massive vessel the size of a small moon. His force of 500 volunteers knew they were on a suicide mission, but they also knew the importance of their target. The main command corps, is 3 levels down, he told his teams, as they fought through corridors filled with mechanical defenders. We plant the virus there, and this whole section of their fleet goes dark. The fighting was brutal. Human soldiers used their knowledge of the ship's layout, gained from previous boarding actions, to set ambushes and create choke points. They turned the Devourer's own technology against them, using captured weapons and hijacked defense systems. When Rodriguez finally reached the command core, he found something that made him pause. The central AI was trying to communicate with him, its mechanical voice translated through his suit's systems. "You cannot win," it said. "We have consumed 1,000 worlds. We are eternal." Rodriguez smiled as he armed the virus package. "Maybe, but we're really annoying." The explosion that followed took out the flagship's entire command network, and with it, the coordination of nearly 1,000,000 Devourer vessels. For the first time in their ancient existence, the machines began to retreat. The Galactic Council Chamber had never hosted a meeting like this one. 6 months had passed since the Sol System battle, and the galaxy itself had changed. Ambassador Zethkar Velnine stood at her observation post, watching as human ships patrolled the space lanes that had once been considered too dangerous to travel. The human vessels were no longer the crude converted miners they had been during the siege. These ships gleamed with integrated alien technology, their hulls bearing the scars of countless battles against Devourer remnants. Each ship was a hybrid of human engineering and captured enemy systems, creating something entirely new in galactic history. "The humans have cleared another sector," reported Counselor Talvesi, her blue skin pale as she reviewed the latest intelligence reports. "They found a Devourer repair facility hiding in the Kepler Nebula and destroyed it completely." Elder Corvash shifted uncomfortably in his seat. At over 800 years old, he had seen the rise and fall of civilizations, but nothing had prepared him for what humanity had accomplished. "How many Devourer ships have they eliminated since the Sol battle?" "Conservative estimates place the number at over 15 million, Velnine replied. "But the humans claim the actual count is higher. They say many Devourer vessels self-destructed rather than face capture." The chamber doors opened with a soft hiss, and the human delegation entered. Director Sarah Chen led the group, her appearance unchanged except for new lines around her eyes and a confidence that seemed to fill the room. Behind her walked General Rodriguez, Admiral Santos, and Dr. Foster, each carrying themselves with the bearing of veterans who had faced impossible odds and won. What unsettled the alien representatives most was how normal the humans looked. They didn't appear to be conquerors or warriors. They looked like teachers, engineers, and scientists who happened to have saved the galaxy in their spare time. "You for agreeing to this meeting," Director Chen said as she took her seat at the council table. "We have several matters to discuss." Elder Corvash leaned forward, his ancient reptilian features creased with concern. "The council wishes to express our gratitude for your actions against the Devourer threat. Your species has accomplished what we believed impossible." "We appreciate that," General Rodriguez replied. "But gratitude isn't why we're here. We need to talk about the future." Dr. Foster activated a holographic display that showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red markers indicated Devourer sightings, while blue markers showed human patrol routes. The blue markers far outnumbered the red ones. "We've been hunting the remaining Devourers for 6 months," Dr. Foster explained. "Every time we find them, we learn something new. They're not just random machines. They're part of a larger network that extends beyond this galaxy." The council representatives exchanged worried glances. Counselor Talvesi spoke first.
"Beyond
"This galaxy? What do you mean?" "We captured one of their deep space communication arrays," Admiral Santos answered. "The Devourers have been sending reports to somewhere in the Andromeda galaxy. They're not the main force. They're scouts." The chamber fell silent. The threat they had believed eliminated was actually just the beginning of something much larger. Elder Corvash felt his ancient heart skip a beat. "How long do we have?" "Unknown," Director Chen replied. "Could be decades, could be centuries. But they will come eventually, and when they do, they'll be ready for human tactics." "What do you propose?" Velnine asked, her crystal form dimming. With anxiety, General Rodriguez stood and walked to the holographic display. We propose that the Galactic Council undergoes immediate military reform. Every member species needs to modernize their fleets and adopt new tactical doctrines. The way you've been fighting wars for the past 1,000 years won't work against what's coming, and you would lead this reform, Elder Corvash asked carefully. No, Director Chen said firmly. We would teach it. Human military advisors would. Work with each species to develop their own defensive capabilities. We're not interested in ruling the galaxy. Just want to make sure it can defend itself. What went unspoken was the implication that the Council had failed in its most basic responsibility. For centuries, they had maintained peace through diplomacy and superior technology, never preparing for an enemy that couldn't be reasoned with or intimidated. There's something else, Dr. Foster added, bringing up another section of data. The Devourers were studying us too. Every battle, every tactic we used, they were learning and adapting. By the end, they had started using human-style coordination and boarding tactics. What does that mean, Talvesi asked. It means the next wave will be different, Admiral Santos explained. They'll be expecting desperate human tactics. They'll have countermeasures for our viruses and defenses against our boarding actions. We need to be ready to fight a completely different kind of war. The meeting continued for hours with the humans outlining their proposals for galactic defense reform. They spoke of mandatory military service, industrial conversion protocols, and the need for every species to understand that survival sometimes required unthinkable sacrifices. As the session ended, Elder Corvash approached Director Chen privately. There's something I must ask. Your species fought with such intensity, such disregard for your own safety. How do we know you won't turn that same intensity against us? Director Chen looked out the chamber's viewport at the stars beyond. Elder Corvash, we didn't fight that way because we enjoy violence. We fought that way because we had no choice. The day we have to fight the Council the same way we fought the Devourers is the day the galaxy has truly failed. She turned back to him, and he saw something in her eyes that was both comforting and terrifying. But if that day comes, we'll be ready for it. The galaxy was safe, but it would never be the same.